Denise Gwen, reading aloud for you from my novella Goddess, Chapter 17. "Hey!" a man yelled. "A lady fell into the fountain!" People ran up to the fountain and gazed down into the water and recoiled in horror. Yes, sure enough, there was a body in the water. A girl standing nearby started to cry. The man pulled out his cell phone and dialed 911. Nobody wanted to jump into the fountain, and yet everyone knew that someone had to. Finally, two men jumped into the frigid water and wrestled the body out of the fountain and heaved her over the slate wall and dragged her onto the flagstones and laid her out on her back. "Anybody know CPR?" someone asked. The distant whine of an ambulance. "I do," the young woman said and stepped forward. "I just got certified." She dropped to her knees, fisted her hands one on top of the other the way the instructor had taught her. She found the victim's sternum and pressed down on it, waited a second, then pressed down again. And once she found her rhythm, she pressed, waited, pressed, waited, and kept on performing the chest compressions exactly the way she'd learned. She'd practiced on so many dummies in the CPR class that the strangeness of performing this technique on a human being amazed her with its eerie similarity. Only, instead of a waxen-faced dummy, she stared down into a pale human face, staring sightlessly up at the sky. The girl had never expected to find herself doing this in real life. A man dropped down to his knees and put his mouth over the victim's mouth and blew, and the young woman considered saying something. In her CPR training, she'd learned that mouth-to-mouth resuscitation wasn't as vital a step as had once been believed. What was best, she'd learned, was to keep the blood flowing. And so she kept up with the chest compressions and didn't utter a word of protest to the man. An older lady bent down and suggested that they roll the body over onto its side. And they all worked together to lift the right shoulder and turn the body over onto its left side. And someone thumped the dead woman's back, and a torrent of water and snot and phlegm poured from the mouth and nose. By the time the ambulance arrived, it appeared as if all the water had been cleared from the woman's lungs, but she remained unconscious. The paramedics jumped out of the ambulance with a gurney and rattled it across the flagstones to the body. The shivering wet men assisted the paramedics by grabbing the victim's arms and legs and hoisting her onto the gurney. The first paramedic put an oxygen mask over her nose and mouth. The second paramedic strapped a blood pressure cuff around her right arm and clattered the gurney across the slate apron toward the ambulance. The first paramedic called out, "She's got a pulse." The woman who'd suggested rolling the body over onto its side noticed a handbag and a walker perched by the wall. She grabbed the handbag and hurried it over to the ambulance. A paramedic stood at the back door. She held it out to him. "The lady who drowned, this is her purse." "Oh, okay, thanks." He took it from her and laid it down on the ambulance floor, jumped up into the back of the ambulance, and slammed the door shut from inside. As the door locked, the woman turned around and realized that she'd forgotten the walker. She wanted to say something to the paramedic, but as she whirled back, the ambulance pulled away from the curb. One of the men turned to the young girl. "You did a good job there, young lady." "Thanks," she said, and burst into tears.